Hello, and once again, welcome to Ballin with Roy and Edwyn. My name is Roy S. Johnson, and this is my son, Edwyn Lawrence Johnson. How are you doing today, Edwyn?
I'm good, Daddy. How are you?
Good, good. We are in the midst of the NBA playoffs and other things happening in sports. Here we come together every time to just take an intergenerational look at the news and all the things that are going on in sports, and just maybe have a little debate about who's up, who's down, and who should be out. So we're going to start with a story that really began last week when Alabama coach Nick Saban was speaking to a group of business people in Birmingham. And off the cuff, somebody asked him about NIL. He went on a several-minute rant talking about how it's affecting recruiting. And he ended up coming after Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M by saying that they bought everybody in their 2022 recruiting class. This touched off a firestorm that still totally hasn't ended. So he said that, and then he also talked about Deion Sanders, who is the coach at Jackson State. And what he said was this. He said, Jackson State paid a guy $1 million last year, and that was a really good Division I player to come to their school, as if that was the reason that Travis Hunter came to that school. It was a 5-star cornerback. So, Edwyn, this has been a big firestorm. We've talked about NIL before and how it's affected college sports. But why would Coach Saban, clearly one of the top coaches in the nation, not the top coach, come after Jimbo, create this firestorm? He's apologized a little bit. And I wrote a column about the impact of what he said about Jackson State and HBCU, and how it inferred that what other reason would a 5-star athlete go to an HBCU if he was not paid $1 million? So let's focus on that. From your perspective, a 5-star athlete went to an HBCU. It was a big get for Deion Sanders. I thought that was demeaning for Saban to say that. And even Deion said, hey, so I'm not good enough? You don't think the guy may just want to come here because I'm Deion Sanders? He may want to come here and go to an excellent academic institution. So what did you think of that remark and how it may have impacted not just Jackson State, but all HBCUs who are starting to step up their recruiting efforts?
It was, and again, I love Nick Saban. I love him to death. He's my favorite coach. I think he is the greatest college football coach, not just in the game right now, but of all time. But again, they do the Geico commercials together. So if anything, you have each other's number. Not to say that they're the best of friends, but you two have been around each other. Deion was a 5-star corner before he went to Florida State. And then if I'm not mistaken, he was the 5th pick in the 1989 draft. Yes, because of who he is. Just like for other schools like Tennessee State, Eddie George being a coach, you're going to have guys who look up to you come to these schools because now they're coaches like yourself, younger coaches that are going to bring a lot of style, flavor, and swag to the game, offense, defensively. You're going to work hard as well as have fun too. Why would you not want to go to a school like that and be able to take that chance? Because at the end of the day, if you're that great, no matter where you go, your game is going to show. Scouts are going to see your game. Whether you go to HBCU for basketball or football, professional coaches, scouts, they're going to see if you're that good, you're that great of a player first and foremost. So to demeanor him like that was wrong at that, because let's be honest, if you want to be real, an HBCU does not have $1 million to spend on an athlete. They might have $1 million to spend on a whole bunch of other things or the program overall. They don't have $1 million to just spend on one athlete. Let's be clear. Now, if you're talking about 3 or 5, that may be a little bit of a different story. But one, they don't have money for that. So at the end of the day, let's just get that out there right then and there. So for him to get, and again, I understand you still want to be on top. You've been on top since you went to Alabama after he left the Dolphins in 2007, 2008 when he became a coach. And immediately, he won a national championship as soon as he came to Alabama like that. A lot of coaches don't do that, cannot do that. But to dominate immediately, he's been doing it for years. And again, he's had losses. He's, again, like I said, lost to Georgia, lost to one of his disciples and Kirby Smart. He's lost to Clemson. So he's been at the top and he's been at the bottom. But he's had great success there too. And yes, one of your other former disciples was the first one to beat you too. Jimbo Fisher beat you in the game last year too. And you know what? I'll give Jimbo Fisher a lot of credit and a lot of respect for the last couple of years working his way up to that point, because for the last few years up until last year when they beat them, every time Alabama and Texas A&M played, it was a decent, okay game, especially when they had Keller Mond at quarterback. Alabama still whipped them. And not to say that they didn't have any good players, athletic players, or pieces on the defense. They did, but they weren't up there yet. Finally, they got to that point. So I will give them all the respect in the world of being not even a top 10 team, top 5 team. I'll give them that. But I think they're saying for you to do that. And Jimbo wasn't wrong to say what he said back out of anger. He said that, so I get that too. And Deion is wrong. And again, I think Nick Saban would want to have a private conversation. Deion said, we need to have it public. You said this public. Let's have this public. Let's settle it. Let's move on. Hopefully, they'll still be able to do some more Geico commercials together. Hopefully, after that game, because this just added more fuel to that fire. I'm looking forward to that Alabama Texas A&M game. You already talking about them losing.
Put it on the calendar. Mark it down.
This is about to be a big fueled fire.
Right.
So that game, that as well as, and I don't care whether it's on CBS 3:30 in the afternoon or it's on ESPN at night. I can't wait. Get your popcorn ready.
Popcorn game 1. I will be surprised if there's a public discussion between Saban and Deion. That's not Saban's way. I wouldn't also be surprised if he hasn't already reached out to Deion and apologized. And they'll figure out a way. Who knows? It may work its way into a commercial. Who knows? The kid may even be in the commercial and picking between Saban and Sanders. But I think it's important also from a historical standpoint to look back. And I'm old enough to remember when great players only had the option of going to HBCUs. And there are a lot of Hall of Famers who went to HBCUs because the predominantly white schools, the PWIs, did not accept African-American athletes, let alone African-American students, didn't accept African-Americans at all on a very limited basis. So for generations, most of the great players went to HBCUs. And of course that changed when schools started to open up their classrooms and open up, certainly try to go and get the best black athletes. And so you may not even be old enough to remember when African Americans couldn't go to almost any school they wanted to. So it's totally changed. Most of the best players.
Born. Remember, I wasn't even born.
Yeah, I know. Most of the best players now will go to a PWI. So for people who have sort of short-term memory, they think, well, why in the world would a top athlete go to an HBCU? Well, maybe he wants an HBCU education. There's clearly a different environment, going to a place where you are nurtured, where everyone is striving for excellence, and not to a place where you're looked at as an anomaly. I mean, let's face it, most of the black athletes at these top schools, there aren't very many other African-American men at these schools. So you walk around these campuses and people say, oh, he must be an athlete. Whereas at Morehouse or Jackson State or Alabama State, Alabama A&M, you are here because you are one of us. You are an African-American, and you are here to try to be excellent at whatever it is you do. I mean, how dare a young athlete want to be in that environment? I think the tide is changing. You may not see 25 five-star athletes go to HBCUs, but I think you're going to see more and more top athletes going to HBCUs, not just to play, but also to get that college experience, to get that nurturing experience, and also to understand. And what these coaches are saying is like, look, if you're that good, let me help you get to the next level. You're seeing more ex-pro athletes going to coach at HBCUs, in both football and basketball, and that's going to be a major attraction as well. You want to say something else?
Yeah, Zach, I did want to add. Well, first of all, in terms of athletes and I literally just went down Facebook and I saw a running back, I forget his name, that went to HBCU, but I remember Shannon Sharp, he went to Savannah State. And again, he's 3-time Super Bowl champ, 7-time Pro Bowler. He went to Savannah State. So again, that's one great guy. And again, he went in the 7th round. He's a Hall of Fame tight end. So that's just one of the many, black athletes that have gone to HBCUs too, and have gone on to the next level and have had great professional careers too. But what I was going to say also was that Nick Saban also opened Pandora's box too, because one of the things that Jimbo Fisher referred to was like, just go back, do your research on the history, things that he's done recruiting. And that's pretty much why they were all coached together at LSU. And again, they won a national championship there, but just some of the things that he supposedly had did while he was coaching there to recruit players too. And again, we don't know whether it's true or not. I don't think I think there's something there we don't know. So I think that just it's gonna have people definitely do the research to bring up the skeletons or just things to throw dirt on Nick Saban's name. And again, Belichick will vouch for Nick Saban any day of the week. Those two are best friends for being coaching in Cleveland together too. But and again, I think a lot of people forget too that he also coached in Michigan State too. So I don't really know if there's anything else to add on to that. But it's not good. I think sometimes you just have to think about what you say. And I understand there's a lot of emotions involved. And Nick Saban, again, is 70 years old. So he does know what he's doing. It's just, we all get caught up. He's a great coach, but he's still human.
So circle this date, October 8th, 2022, Texas A&M in Tuscaloosa to play Alabama. Forget the game. I want to see the handshake at the end of the game. You know how they always surround college coaches with these state troopers. There'd probably be several more state troopers surrounding these two coaches as they come to the center of the field after the game. You may know that the SWAC conference, an HBCU conference, is based here in Birmingham, and on the wall of the SWAC, there are jerseys and photos of all the former SWAC players who are now in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, are playing in the NFL. Again, I think we're going to see more and more top young black athletes going to HBCUs because they know they can still get to the next level and also get a great nurturing education at an HBCU. All right, so while we're talking about football, let's go to the pro level. Something unique happened this week. Colin Kaepernick, we don't need to go down the road as to who he is and why he hasn't been in the NFL, but he was given an invitation by the Las Vegas Raiders, that's why old school I am, right? The Las Vegas Raiders to have a tryout, and according to ESPN, according to Adam Scheffler, he did the tryout was on the Wednesday of this week. We haven't heard anything coming out of that, but that's the first official team invitation tryout for Colin Kaepernick since May of 2017 for the Seattle Seahawks. And of course, that didn't work out. So how big is this that he finally is getting an opportunity to try out for a specific NFL team?
It is big. And again, with everything that's going on the couple of months with a couple of these coaches, Hugh Jackson and so forth, now there are things in place. So I think teams are really going to make sure that they're not being accused of anything racial-wise. So now he's getting that opportunity, that chance that he deserved. He talked about for the last 5 years, and everybody has talked, whether it's analysts or other just NFL players, talking about he deserves a chance. Well, here it is. We don't know what's happened. We're going to wait to see. He clearly is in great shape. He's been working out 5 days a week since he's been out of the NFL. He clearly can throw the football. But he's been gone for a long time. You can't just think that he's just going to be able to pick up any profession you do. If you're out of that profession for 5-6 years, it's going to take you a while to get back to that point. And again, he's 34 years old. But it's going to come down to him putting on pads, going to training camp, putting on pads, and see how that works then, because that's going to be the true test. That's going to really tell you. And he's going to have to at least be a second-string quarterback, because if he's possibly third, they might not keep hanging on to him for an entire season. But second string, that would secure him on the team if something were to happen to Derek Carr. And again, Derek Carr is a good quarterback. Mm-hmm. He has good stats, but he still has not had the accomplishments that Colin Kaepernick has had, going to the Super Bowl, losing to the Ravens, going to the NFC Championship the year after that, losing to Seattle, which again, Seattle won that year too. So again, Derek Carr went to the playoffs for the first time last year. He is a good quarterback. But again, having Cap, I think that is just that's a good thing for him in case he does go down, especially with look at that division too. You're talking about Denver now with Russell Wilson, and then of course Kansas City.
You know, it's no surprise that the Raiders did this, not just in light of all the things that have happened in the last few months. The Raiders under Al Davis, the late former owner, was always, they were always one of the renegade teams, one of the first teams to do things like hire black coaches, hire people of color in the front office. So it's not surprising, given the legacy of this franchise, that they would do this. Here's how I think this is going to unfold. Unless Colin Kaepernick was terrible on Wednesday, I imagine he at least gets an invitation to camp, to the first days of camp. And as you said, He's got to put on some pads. He's going to have to get hit. He's going to have to play and perform against some real live action. They may not do hits the first few weeks of practice, but he's going to be playing against pro players who all want to make their mark. And ultimately, I think we might see him in a preseason game. So at least he is going to get, I think he's going to get the opportunity to show that he can still play. As you said, we know he's in great shape. We know he can throw the ball. He is 34 years old. So we will have to see what happens in live competition. The game has likely gotten a little bit faster and he's gotten a little bit slower. So can he still hit players in that very, very small window now where they're playing and the opportunity to get the catch behind the defense or in front of the defense? Can he elude these dynamic edge rushers that are now just frothing at the mouth to get to quarterbacks? Because you know somebody's going to want to get that first hit on Colin Kaepernick. So I think it's going to unfold that way. He will get invited to camp, see in a preseason game, and that will be the telling tale as to whether or not he ends up on the Raiders roster or somewhere else, or whether somebody sees he can play. Maybe he doesn't make it, but if a quarterback gets hurt, and God forbid that ever happens, but it always does, he might get another call. So I do think we're going to see Colin Kaepernick on the field, if nothing else, in a preseason game. So remember to check that out be late this summer. So of course we would be remiss without mentioning the tragedy in Uvalde, Texas, about 80 miles west of San Antonio, in which an 18-year-old man, went into Robb Elementary School, barricaded himself in a classroom, killed 19 fourth graders, 2 adults, a tragedy that touched and hurt us all, angered many of us. I wrote about it in a column today and just called for those who have been standing in front of and blocking legislation to try to fix some of this in some way, to stand down, to stop talking, no more thoughts and prayers, no more empty platitudes, and just show me that you care about kids. That tragedy happened on the day of Game 4 of the Western Conference Finals between Golden State and Dallas. The whole state of Texas mourned for them. The Dallas Mavericks, the Houston Oilers, the Dallas Cowboys, everybody put out statements. And of course, the most passionate statement actually came from Steve Kerr, the head coach of the Golden State Warriors, who came out before the game, said, "I'm not talking any basketball." He talked about this. He's been a long advocate against gun violence. As many people know, his own father, who used to be a diplomat, was killed by violence overseas. And so he's passionate about it. And he slammed the table and said, "When are we going to do something?" That game was played under that cloud. And Dallas ended up winning that game. They're down 3-1. So give me your sense of what happened and what that tragedy means to you. It gave Dallas a little bit of an impetus to come out and win that game, but they're down 3-1. I think this series is a wrap. It's going to go back to Golden State. Golden State's going to close it out. But for that one day, Dallas was given an opportunity to show that it was thinking about and mourning for those 19 children and 2 adults.
Well, there are a lot of emotions in the air for both teams. Obviously, Steve Kerr and just them being the team in Texas too. And again, there are fathers on that court. I mean, Steph Curry, if I'm not mistaken, his oldest, Riley, is the age of some of those kids too. So, I mean, again, they were blocked out. Everybody was distracted. It's no secret Dallas needed to win that game. Regardless whether that happened or anything else, they needed to win that game. They won it. They extended it. It's not going to be a sweep. I thought it was going to be a sweep. It's not going to be. Is it going to be closed tonight? Yes. They're going to close it tonight. They're not going to keep lingering on with this, and they want time off before they go to the finals. So it's going to be over tonight. I'm tired. I'm tired of it too. I'm tired of hearing about the gun violence, and I've heard about it from high school in Connecticut. There's been incidents when I was in school, out of school. When is there going to be a change? When are the people in DC going to listen to all the people that are saying there need to be background checks, people with mental illnesses, people who ex-cons, felons, etc.? Not everybody can hold arms. We can't go by that rule anymore, because not everybody is capable of. It's not guns; it's the people who wield guns. When is this innocent children keep getting killed? if you are not an officer, a veteran, a farmer, and I understand people who do hold guns in their homes. Again, you are healthy, mentally healthy people. You feel the need. I know people can disagree with this. You feel the need. You need to own a gun for your safety, family. Okay, fine, but not everybody can hold arms anymore. We can't go by that amendment anymore, and that's been clear for years and years and years. So I'm just no more prayers go out, because we do this, and then however many years, 2-3 years later, on 4 or 5 years, it happens again. And we're all, like I said, angered, sad. I went in to ask my mom if she wanted something to eat. She was looking at that. She almost cried. I'm like, don't cry. No, it's sad, especially when again, you are a parent too, and you have children. Mm-hmm. Or you're just a human being. You feel for that, and you're tired of it.
There's no question. I texted you and your sister, and I said, I'm so glad that you all are out of school, but I have friends who have kids in school, and the conversations that they're having to have with their children are just heartbreaking. And dropping your kid off, you never think that your kid might not come home, particularly when they're young and innocent. They're just trying to get an education. You referred to Connecticut. So you were 18 years old when Sandy Hook happened, and that was the worst school disaster in the history of this country. And now 10 years later, the second worst happens. And in between, not much has changed. And let's face it. So, I was very adamant in blaming the Republican Party for being the block, standing at the door to block some of the legislation. But let's get beyond that, because it's really going to take everybody in the room, both at the federal and the state level, to start somewhere. I spoke with a state legislator in Alabama today, and he said, well, where do you start? I said, you got to start somewhere. Maybe it's starting with red flag laws. Maybe it's starting with expanding the background checks from 3 days to 10 days, just to give it time to happen. Maybe you look at just the mental health and how you help local authorities to identify some of these young people and to identify anyone who shouldn't have a gun because of mental health challenges. It's not a mental health issue per se, but that is part of it. You might even look at exploring whether raising the age for buying a gun from 18 to 21. You gotta be 21 to get a drink, but you can be 18 and get a gun. So these are things that all should be on the table. There is no one solution, but we've got to start somewhere. And that's what I'm asking and I'm praying for anybody who's in a position to try to affect change in this area, to start somewhere. So let's move on to the other series. Now, this is the competitive series. This is, with Boston and Miami. It was 2-2. I love pivotal games like Game 5. And we're doing this now the night after Game 5. And Boston just blew Miami out. Boston showed they are deeper. They got talented players down to maybe 10 deep. That is a solid team. They really put Miami on the brink. So I think this series is not going to go any further than 6 games. But I think Boston is showing that now you start to look at the finals. Could be a heck of a final between Golden State. I don't want to get too far here, and Golden State and Boston. This is Golden State's maybe their last stand. They're putting down Boston. They put down the Young Bucks, but the Celtics may be waiting for them. And that's going to be a deep, deep team that's going to be hungry to put another banner at the top of that arena where so many great teams, so many great Celtics teams hung championship banners. Looks like this team wants to be the next one to do that.
I'll disagree with you on one thing. I do still think it'll go to Game 7.
Okay.
I understand you saying 6. I think it's going to Game 7. Either way, Boston is going to win the series. They are deeper, like you said. I mean, Jimmy Butler had a bad game. This is probably the worst game of his career. Bam Adebayo is going to do what he does. He's going to, maybe get you 15 points. He's going to get, 10 rebounds. Again, he's athletic. He's an athletic shot blocker. He's a great rebounder. Again, Tyler Hero's out. That's a big disadvantage also. Duncan Robinson is a shooter, but he doesn't play any defense. So they're at a disadvantage. You have guys that
he plays no defense. 0, zip, nada.
But Miami has been a great defensive team for the last couple of years too. And now Boston, they're the number 1 defensive team in the league, which isn't necessarily a bad thing for the Heat if they're number 2. But they've been known for defense for the last 3 years. And now, again, you remember Jimmy Butler had issues with his team last year not being tough. They were being soft. And now you're just at this point. You're not playing defense. You're struggling offensively. Jaylen Brown gets that dunk. Jason Tatum,
yeah,
he's the
let's
best
stop
on the
there.
floor.
Because, I mean, this is where you can tell a team is on a roll. Yeah. Unless you are a Celtic fan or somebody who is as steeped in this as you are. The Celtics have guys showing up that you've never heard of before, right? So all of a sudden, Jaylen Brown gets the ball, and I saw him come down the lane. I said, oh my gosh, what's he about to do? He put up the dunk that literally sent the Heat fans home. They were holding out some hope. The team was down. They weren't coming back. When he went and did that dunk, it took the heart out of the Heat. It took the heart out of fans. Everybody, turn the lights out, go home. If they carry that energy at home, I mean, you may be right to go to Game 7, and so Boston have to win twice in Miami. But this team now is confident. They are strong. They are healthy. They are young. That's a hard combination to beat.
And Miami has youth too, but right now you clearly see who the better team is. I thought both ends it was going to be defense. Everything that either team got was going to be earned. But no, I don't know what happened to Miami. I just know Marcus Smart coming back gets their boost back defensively and offensively too, because he does contribute to the offense also. Robert Williams, their shot blocker, they have him back too. Wasn't it Al Horford finding the fountain of youth? He's played with a lot of energy. He's played his tail off even from last series too up until now. They have mix of veterans, youth, offensively, defensively, physicality, everything to win. And I didn't think they were going to out-tough Miami. That's one thing I didn't think was going to happen, and it happened too. Because even with Udonis has some presence on the bench too, you would think, okay, they're going to lose making mistakes. They're going to lose missing shots, not off of lack of physicality, intensity, nor defense. So again, it's a knock at Pat Riley. No, you know what? That's a lie. It's never going to be a knock at Pat Riley nor Eric Spoelstra. That's a great organization, 3 championships, even though now it's about what have you done for me lately. Let's just say right now this is a bad year for them. This part, it's about to be over. You had a good season. Now it's about to recharge, regroup for next year. What are you going to do to get better? Because every team right now, if you look at the East, I don't know what's going to happen in Brooklyn, so I'll just leave them out.
Yeah, let's leave that for another week. Let's just stay on the Final Four, getting to the Final Two. It's been great playoffs so far. Great series in the East. Young team Dallas not quite able to do it in the West, leading up to the NBA Finals, and I think they're going to be juicy. So let's focus on that. Let's let the East play out. Let's let the West play out. We both made our predictions, and let's see how it goes. So Edwyn, as always, it was great to have this conversation. Talked about a little bit of history, talked about current events and some of the sadness and the tragedies that are unfolding in your lifetime and in our in real time for us. Plenty to talk about. Again, we pray for everybody. We pray for the victims. We pray for the families of the great tragedy in Texas. May they all be blessed and rest and filled with peace and strength. And until next time, what do we tell everybody to do, Edwyn?
Keep balling.
We love you. Peace.